Hello, welcome to the jungle that is Jim's Allotment Garden. So as you can see, the climbing beans have done really well, but what you need to be doing exactly in the same way as runner beans is, you know, as soon as they kind of get to that kind of size, what you need to be doing, they're a little bit too young, but that's most certainly just about right. So if we go a little bit further down, obviously look at the bottom of the plant because that's where they're going to be, you know, mature the quickest. If you pull these off, then that will encourage the plant to throw out more buds and obviously more beans. So with beans, the more you pick, the more you get. So what you need to be doing is keeping on top of it. Sometimes you need to pick them almost every day if the season's just right for them or the conditions are right for them. And what you need to be doing as well this time of year is most certainly keeping them as well watered as you possibly can do. But you know, you can very quickly get a meal together with these. Now if you have got a glut of them, what I do is just quickly chop them up, top and tail them. In other words, take the top and the bottom off, and then if you, as I say, just blanch them for about probably about 5 minutes, no more than sort of 5 minutes really, and then just bag them up into sort of, I don't know, 1 kilo bags. I always do it, but you can do them less if there's less of you eating. But these. Sorry, and then as soon as you've done that, basically freeze them. So as you can see, these ones here have gone. That one's gone slightly too far, but it'll still be okay to eat. I'll just show you that one. So these are slightly bigger, but they'll be perfectly okay. Also, there's plenty more at the bottom here. So I'll just pick the rest of these, and I'll show you what they look like. In exactly the same way with runner beans, you can freeze them exactly the same way. But what I would suggest you do with these is just basically leave them whole, blanch them, and then put them in the freezer, you know, in one sort of one go. With runner beans, what I tend to do is chop them up into small pieces and then freeze them that way. But it's down to preference. You can actually freeze them whole if you wish, or you can chop these up. But that's the way I typically do it. Okay, so there's today's picking. So there's probably about a kilo or such there. I don't know how much that would probably cost you in the shop if you bought them, but a few pound anyway. But I'll weigh them all up and put them on the spreadsheet for later in the year, so I can tell you. But and there's plenty more coming. As you can see, there's loads more in there ready to grow. And the important thing to remember is just put the broccoli in there as well. The important thing to remember is you know, as soon as the seeds start to form inside the buds, that's when there'll be a hormone sent back through the plant, and then that's when the plant will start to shut down. So it's important that you pick the beans off before they get too far. Otherwise, the actual so there's a couple there that I've missed. You know, the plant will start to shut down, and then you get less beans. Now, the runner beans are exactly the same thing. All beans and peas, and that's obviously what you need to do is keep picking them. It's exactly why you take all the dead heads off the sweet peas as well. So as you can see here, the broad beans are most certainly ready to pick. You know, as soon as they get to kind of this kind of size, what you want to be doing now. Always remember that the ones at the bottom of the plants will always form first because they were the first flowers. So what you need to be doing is looking. You know, if it's your first picking of the year, you most certainly want to be looking at the bottom side of the plant. That's where all the beans will be. The beans that come further up will be slightly later in the season. Obviously, we've still got flowers up further, you know, further up. So always look at the bottom of the plant to start with, and ideally you want to be picking them when they're kind of like that. Any sort of older than that, what they will do is start to go a little bit woody or stringy, and you can tell them when you can tell if they're stringy. Basically, what you should be able to do is with a bean, you should be able to snap it in half, and it clearly snaps off like that. If it's like that, then you know it's good. If it's when you break it off and it's a little teeny bit stringy, then it's gone too far. That being the case, what you need to do is just leave them ones for seed, and then you can save them for seed. So this one here is slightly, you can see that the seed pods are slightly, actually no, that's not too bad. It's slightly stringy, as you can see there. There's a bit of, so that's probably just about as old as you can let it get. But as I say with your beans, keep picking them. The more you pick, the more you'll get. And what you don't want to do is leave one there to run to seed, because the plant will then shut down, and that'll be that. That'll be it for that season. Okay, so the third crop we're going to put in is beetroot. Now, as you know, this is country value beetroot boltard. You know, I grow this variety most years, and this is a really good variety to grow. Now, you get a lot of seeds with your beetroot, and they look like sort of small pieces of sort of cork, and they are pretty good germinators. So again, all you need to do is put a drill in with the side of your hand, and then the trick with beetroot is keeping the seeds moist. Now, what I suggest you do is put one every 2 or 3 inches along the row, and I'll get a couple of rows out of these. And what you'll need to do is potentially go back round and thin them out as soon as they germinate. Now, as I say, the trick with beetroot is keeping them moist. What you do need to do is, most certainly whilst they're germinating, is you know, if you do have a dry patch in the weather, you most certainly need to make sure that they're kept moist. As soon as the plants are established, then you can, you know, they will sort of look after themselves a lot more. But it's always worthwhile, if you are watering, just to give them a little bit whilst they're first growing. Okay, so we had a comment a couple of weeks ago about tomato fruit trusses forming branches. Now, this is a really good example. So this is a money maker tomato plant, and this one seems to be doing it a lot more than normal. But if you can see, this is actually a fruit truss coming out, and there's one tomato there, and another tomato there, and then it turns into a branch. So not only here, but also this one here has turned into a branch, and also that one there has turned into a branch. So it's the whole weight of it is getting a bit sort of out of hand really. So what I'm going to do, just with a pair of secateurs, I'm just going to cut those two off, get them out of the way. And then I'm going to cut that one off there, and take this one off there as well. So just leaving the actual fruiting parts on. Now, this one at the back here, I've also noticed now, whilst I was just going round, I don't know if you can see, but where is it now? I've lost it again. This one here, there's a, I'll just come round, there's a fruiting truss there, look, so that's coming up, and I've got fruit coming here, and then coming off it here is actually a leaf. Or sorry, should I say another shooting branch. So what I'm going to do in exactly the same way, I'm just going to cut with a nice clean pair of secateurs, just take that off, which is effectively like a leaf on the end of it. So I'm going to take that off, and also that shoot as well. I'm just going to quickly, now I could pull that out or just snip it off. It's going to be easy just to snip it off in this case. So that's two examples sort of next to each other. Now this one here, as you can see, that's also got a leaf on the end of it. I'm not overly concerned about that, but whilst we're here, I may as well just pinch that out. So it is reasonably common to get, as I say, you know, when I was discussing on here's another good example, look, fruit truss, So lots of tomatoes, and then right at the end it's turned back into a branch. So I don't know quite why it does this. I think some varieties do it more than others, but tomato plants can be quite sort of mutant really. You know, they can have these you know, sort of strange things going on. You know, I've had all sorts of anomalies. See, here's another one. There's a fruit truss. There are the flowers, and then right at the end it's turned into a branch. Now obviously that's not quite right, so I'm just pulling off all the bits that aren't flowers, like that, just pinching them out. And it seems to be, I don't know why, but it seems to be on the plants that I've topped. So these have had the tops taken out now, because basically it's got to the kind of the roof of the greenhouse. So I've taken the tops out, and they now seem to be forming more sort of leaves and branches on the ends of the fruiting trusses. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it. But you know, these ones that I haven't taken the top out of yet don't seem to have the behaviour. But as soon as you take the top out, like for example this one here, that one's had the top taken out, and that's also now got a leaf on the end of there. So not quite sure if that's got anything to do with it, but I have had them actually forming without the top being taken out. But anyway, that's just a quick update on the tomato plant. Okay, coming back to the tomatoes, I found an even better one here. There's the fruit truss. There, look, coming off the. So there's the main stalk at the back. There's the fruit truss, and then we've got this branch here going all the way up to the top there. So what I'm going to do is just get the secateurs. I'm surprised I haven't spotted this before, but I've got a fruit truss turning into a branch, and then with another fruit truss on the end of it. So I'm going to leave the other fruit truss on, just chop that out. And that's grown in the last week or so. I'm surprised how quickly that's grown, but there you go. You know, you can get all sorts of combinations on tomato plants. So now we've got a fruit truss there, look, with all the tomatoes on. Just focus, and then that's turning into a branch there with a couple of leaves on. So I'll just take that leaf off as well, and that little shoot. And I'll leave that second fruit truss on just in case. So I've got a fruit truss on a fruit truss, so we'll have to see how we get on with that. But as you can see, tomato plants are a bit mutant, and you can get all sorts of combinations of things happening on them. But that's just a quick note on what's going on in here. Okay, so I'm going to put some winter veg in. First one being beetroot. I know I've already got some in, but I'm going to put some more in for later on. And this really is the last time you can sow these. Swede, I'm going to put some swede in as well, and also some turnips. So these are going to be the winter veg, and this ground I've got here I've basically prepared for that. So first thing I'll do is I'll put the swede in. Now, as you know, I've already got a row of swede in next to it here, so all of these here are swede. So these will be the ones I harvest first, and then these will be the next ones. So that's why I'm putting these ones in next to it, so I can tell that the Swedes. Now the Swede seeds, I've shown you before, I know, but I'll just quickly show you. It's a brassica, so the seeds are like small, sort of black or dark brown balls. And sow these reasonably thinly. You know, you want one every couple of inches or so. I'm putting slightly more in. But all you need to do is sow them up the row. And at this time of year, with it being nice and warm, also we had some rain, these will germinate quite quickly. And the ground's in an ideal situation really with having a bit of rain, but it's nice and damp, not too wet, but it's just nice for germinating seeds when it's like this, to be honest with you. And it's also ideal for pulling weeds out, and that's quite good because we've got plenty of those at the moment. But so all I'm doing is putting a really light sprinkle of earth over the top of it, probably about 2 or 3 millimetres, or about 1/8 of an inch, however you want to look at it. So I'll continue up the row, putting these in, and then I'm just going to pat the row down like that with my hand, just to make sure you know, that the seeds are in contact with the ground. Now, before I put the seeds in, I did with the hoe very quickly go over this ground and loosen the top kind of you know, sort of 4 inches of ground up with the hoe, getting it nice. As you can see, it's nice and loose, which is ideal for the seeds so they can get the roots away. So I'll continue this row. I'll put some water on, and then basically I'm just going to leave them, and they'll sort of look after themselves, and I'll be harvesting these towards the end of this year. So I keep explaining to you that I'm breaking the soil up with the hoe. And all this is just a standard weeding hoe. And rather than, obviously when you're weeding, you're sort of doing that kind of action where it's going across the ground and cutting. You know, you use that to cut the weeds off at the ground level like this. All you do is you stand the blade upright like that. And then just by doing this kind of action, what it'll actually do is it'll break the soil up into a really fine tilt. So, and you can also discard any rocks that you may have in there. And if you go along the row like that, exactly where the seeds are going to go, what you can do is you can have firm ground either side of the row, but where the actual row is, you can have really nice fine soil, and that's an ideal situation for your seeds. Okay, so now it's time to put the turnips in. Now these are from the Urban Garden collection, as you can see, and these are Turban Atlantic. Now, just so you can see what turnip seeds look like. You don't get many in the packet. I think there's about 100 seeds in here. So you need to put these reasonably sparingly. Now, again, it's a brassica, so the seeds, what I want to try and do is spread these over 2 rows, so I'm just about getting half of them now. So the seeds look like that, like little balls. So what you want to do is, again I've loosened the ground off with the hoe, just basically going along and loosening the ground. Now brassicas like the ground to be hard, more reasonably firm anyway. So what you want to do is just take a pinch of seeds, sort of 2 or 3 seeds, and you want to plant these about every 3 inches, like that, and then just put the ground back over and sort of pat it down with your hand. So I'll just do it here again so you can see me. Along with your hand like that, obviously along the line, and then just put the seeds in every 2 or 3 inches, like that, and that. And then just go along like that and put the soil back in. The soil's nice and loose, so it's nice. If you're getting lumps of soil like that, just sort of crumble that in over the top of them. But you're looking to get around something like 1/4 of an inch of soil over the top. You don't need too much. But what I like to do is leave a bit of an indentation in the soil, and then what that will actually do is enable you, when you're watering, you can water along that groove, and then the water will sit on the seeds as opposed to watering the rest of it. And obviously that will try to keep the weeds down around, and just water the actual plants that you want to water as opposed to everything. Okay, so as you can see amongst the weeds, the broccoli's just about ready, and the nice sized heads. Now what I'm going to do is cut that off just below, like that. So I've taken off basically that bit. Now from these little side shoots here, what you may well get is some smaller shoots. So it's not so easy doing this with one hand. But you know, if you cut it off high enough, these little side shoots here will also throw some out. But as you know, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting some other broccoli plants in the same variety as these later. So these sort of smaller ones here, if you like, you know, you can sort of leave them to grow on a little bit. But I don't think they're going to run to seed if I leave them on. So I'm just going to take them off. So I think I'll probably go for another one. Now, when they get to this stage here, it doesn't take very long to go from this to running to seed. So You know, as you've got it, what you need to do is eat it. You can freeze it. What you need to do is cut it off and then just blanch it very quickly in some hot water, and you can bob it in the freezer. It isn't as good as it is fresh, obviously, but what you can do, if I can just walk around here, is you know, if you just get that, you know, sort of cut it up into small pieces like that piece there, and then just very quickly blanch it just to sterilise it, and then put it in the freezer. That will keep in there, but it will go from those to this very quickly. As you can see, that one's basically bolted, so that one's no good to anybody apart from the chickens there. But as you can see, this one here is also, those also there. Those need to be eaten in the next couple of days. But one really nice dish you can make with broccoli is like a pasta broccoli bake. So if you cook some sort of short pasta and then boil this, mix the two together and make a cheese sauce, it is really nice, and that's quite popular with all my family. So that's most certainly one way of using a lot of broccoli in one go. But that's what the broccoli looks like at the moment, apart from the weeds, which I wanted to get around to pulling them out, but I've just not got around to it this weekend. But the broccoli harvest is looking pretty good. But as I say, what I'm going to do is as soon as I've used all of this, what I'm going to do is pull all these out, clear the ground out, and what I'm going to be doing is pouring another batch of this in, which is growing in the greenhouse at the moment. Then hopefully I'll get a second crop sometime in sort of September, October time this year. Okay, so as you can see, the onions have now all sort of died back. So you can see that the tops have kind of died and withered. So basically what we need to do now, before we have any rain tomorrow, is take these out and put them inside for drying. So I'll show you the best way how to do that next. Okay, so obviously the first step is getting them out of the ground. So what you need to do is put the fork just to the side of the onion, and what you want to do is lift it out of the ground. So if you sort of loosen the ground up like that and then just pull the onion out, what you want to do is you want to keep all of the roots, or as many of the roots as you possibly can, on the onion, ready for drying, because that's going to give you a much better onion once it's dried. Okay, so now we've got all of the onions drying in the greenhouse. Now what I've done is I've put them upside down. As you can see, the shoots coming out at the bottom, so the onion's upside down, roots facing uppermost, and they'll sort of dry out like this for probably about 3 or 4 weeks, and then what I'm going to do is put them into a string, and I'll show you how to do that in a few weeks time when I come to do that. Dependent on the weather, if they do dry out a little bit sooner, what I will do is string them up in the next couple of weeks, but that's the plan. So what I've done just to prepare them, because I had the fungal problem this year, now these onions are nowhere near the size that they normally are. I mean, something like that is probably normally one of the smallest ones that I've got, but that's actually one of the biggest ones, to be honest with you. But what I've done is any of these sort of side bits like that have got any kind of damage on, I've pulled all that off, and then any of the shoots that were sort of coming out from here that have got the fungal on, that's got a little teeny bit, but I've pulled most of it off, and as you can see them all on here on the floor. So I'm just about to tidy all these away and put them onto the fire to burn. But so the onions will stay like this. As I say, I'll show you in a couple of weeks time, a few weeks time, when I've got it all, when I've got them all dry and ready to go. But basically you'll be able to tell, because all the roots will be shriveled up, and you'll be able to just rub the roots off, and then I'll be checking these on a sort of weekly basis. I'm just going to come in and just make sure that there's no no signs of any sort of fungus or anything like that on them. And obviously what I've got underneath here is that's free for the air to move. I've got all of the windows open, so there's a nice there's a nice sort of draft coming through. It's nice and dry in here, it's not wet, it's nice and dry, and I've got a good wind flow going through, so they'll dry quite nicely there, and I'll show you what they look like in a few weeks time. Okay, so I just wanted to bring you down here to show you some potatoes which are growing not that far away from the allotment. It's just basically a 2-minute walk away, and if you look at these potatoes, you can see how sort of well they've grown and how sort of well developed they are. They're just coming into flower now, and obviously the strain of potatoes, as you can see, really just suit the ground. But the important thing that I wanted to show you was the ground. Now if you look at the ground, it looks very different to the ground that's in my allotment. As you can see, it's quite sort of sandy, and doesn't hold moisture very well. You know, there's almost no carbon in the ground at all. You know, there's no sort of organic material, and as you can see, this sort of path running through the field here, you can see how sort of sandy the ground is, and that's basically because this is farmland as opposed to garden or allotment. Now with allotments, obviously people do put a lot of muck and manure and organic material in there to improve the quality of the ground. Obviously when you're farming on this kind of scale, you know, you do heavily rely on man-made sort of fertilisers and that. So basically the ground becomes very much a substrate to hold the plant and to hold moisture around the roots of the plant. However, all of the goodness, all of the fertiliser is basically all man-made, and it's all man-made from basically hydrocarbons, which is another name for basically fossil fuels. Now, fossil fuels are not sustainable, unfortunately. If we use them at the rates that we're using them now, they're going to last about another 90 years or so. So, you know, at that point that those run out, we're going to most certainly, we're most certainly going to run out of the ability to grow things in this manner that we are at the moment. Now in this field here we've got a crop of beans. These are very similar to runner beans, but they're a little bit smaller. And these are used for, I don't know if you're aware, but in the UK we eat a lot of sort of baked beans. These are the types of beans. So if you open up that pod, in there are a number of small beans about the size of my little finger. And that's this crop here. Now again, if you look at the soil here, you know, the sand is quite soily. It's quite pale looking, you know, it's a sandy colour, and there's not a lot of, you know, if you sort of brush it around with your feet, as you can see, it breaks up quite easily. So in 90 years time, when we run out of these hydrocarbons to make the fertilisers that keep all of this type of, or this style of growing crops going, what do we do? Well, really the only thing we can do is return back to how we used to grow things in the past, where basically you rely on natural sources to fertilise the ground. Now if we just kept growing crops here, this ground would just, basically crops wouldn't grow. After 2 or 3 years the ground would be absolutely exhausted, and you know, there'd be no goodness left in the ground at all to support the crops, most certainly not to this extent. But I don't know if you noticed just, but as we were walking through, obviously this is the field, this is where the crops have been grown, but if we look at the hedgerow, you'll see that as we get close to the hedgerow, the ground actually changes colour. So I don't know if you can see here, but the ground suddenly becomes darker, and if we actually look down here, that's soil there. I don't know if you can see that, but that's quite dark. Yeah, I'll just get some of that so you can actually see. So if you look at that soil there, obviously we've got carbon in there. You know, we've got all sorts of plant life sort of breaking down and rotting down, and that's got some substance to it. Now if you compare that to, if we walk back into the field, to this soil here, so that's the soil from the hedgerow, and then this is the soil from the actual field. So you can instantly see the difference in colour. That's from the hedgerow, and as you can see, that's really sandy and not much to it. So you can see the two different types of soil. Now what we need to do is to grow plants in a more traditional style, as in we don't you know, destroy the natural things that are in the ground. Now in this soil here, there's going to be very little worms, if any. There's also going to be very little in the, you know, sort of bacteria or anything like that, because they just basically cannot survive in the soil. So what we need to do, most certainly in the future, is to return back to a different type of farming, where we rely on crops that don't necessarily need to be grown in this manner, to basically sustain us into the future. So I hope this episode has been of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you got below, and I'll see you in the next episode of Jim's Little Garden.